If you stand perfectly still in the dead of winter, somewhere in the deep basins of the Fagradalsfjall system, you might hear something that makes absolutely no sense. You are standing on a dead ocean of solid, black rock. The eruption is over. The sky is gray. The wind is howling. And yet, beneath your boots, the ground sounds like a dinner party disaster. It sounds like 1,000 chandeliers shattering in slow motion. Out here, it has a name, the glass phenomenon. It is not a ghost. It is physics doing what physics does best, being violent on a microscopic scale. You see, massive lava flows, like the ones in Geldingadalir or Meradalir, are essentially thermal batteries. The surface is frozen, battered by the subarctic wind at -10 degrees Celsius. But 30 meters down, that core is still molten. It is still liquid fire. The differential stress between that frozen crust and the hot heart rips the silicate rock apart. Snap, click, tink. It is a beautiful sound, but it is also a warning. If the rock is clicking, the rock is moving. And if you are standing on it, well, gravity is a strict judge. Welcome to the aftermath. Welcome to the trilogy. Before your boots do anything stupid, the peninsula needs one clean premise. The history of the Reykjanes Peninsula is currently being written in two very different inks. On one side, you have the chaotic, destructive fires of the Sund-Nukur, the ones that threaten the town of Grindavik. That is the shallow source phase. That is the magma acting like a leaky capacitor, filling up and bursting just 4 kilometers down, purely to ruin everyone's day. But we are not talking about that today. We are talking about the deep source, the trilogy. The 3 eruptions, 2021, 2022, and 2023, that functioned as a safety valve. They came from way down, 15 to 20 kilometers deep, straight from the mantle boundary. They politely erupted in enclosed valleys where nobody lived, creating what geologists now call a living museum. Think of it as a gallery opening that lasted 3 years. The first exhibit is the veteran, the 2021 eruption at Geldingadalir. If you look at it now, in 2026, it looks old. It looks tired. The iron in the rock has rusted. It has reacted with the rain and the oxygen to form hematite. The field is a landscape of burnt orange, ochre, and rusty red. It looks like Mars if Mars had a terrible winter. This was the tourist eruption. It lasted 6 months, a marathon of lava that filled the valley and spilled over into Nautagi. Engineers tried to stop it, of course. They built earthen barriers. The lava treated those barriers like speed bumps. It overran them in June 2021, proving once again that you do not negotiate with effusive flux. You just move the road. Then, just north of that, you have the sprinter, the Meradalir eruption of August 2022. It was intense, fast, and angry. It dumped millions of cubic meters of rock in just 3 weeks and then vanished. It covered the old hiking trails, forcing us to carve new paths over rougher terrain. It proved that the peninsula was not done with us. And finally, the aggressor. Litli-Hrútur, July 2023. This is the visual anchor of the trilogy. Unlike the rusty red of the first eruption, this field is still pitch black. It is vitreous, glassy. The pahoehoe ropes are sharp enough to slice through boot leather. But the real signature here isn't the rock. It is the ring. The black ring. Litli-Hrútur erupted during a drought. The radiative heat from the fresh lava didn't just cook the air, it ignited the moss. The Raccomitrium moss heathlands, which take decades to grow, burned in massive wildfires. Hundreds of hectares went up in smoke. So when you stand there today, you see this stark, brutal contrast. Black, glassy lava against a ring of black, charred earth. It is not pretty. It is the landscape keeping receipts. It changes depending on when you stand there. In the summer, the light is endless. The low-angle gold of the midnight sun hits the lava field and makes the textures look like a frozen ocean, rippling all the way to the horizon. It feels ancient. But winter? Winter is when the silence gets heavy. The daylight is compressed, the air is still, and that is when the clicking gets loud. That is when the basins feel predatory. Now, this brings us to the human factor. You cannot talk about the trilogy without talking about the spectacle. For a brief, shining moment, Iceland had a tourist volcano. It was a festival. The band Kaleo recorded a music video for their song Skinny right in front of the vent. You've seen the shot. A singer standing there, cool as ice, while the earth opens behind him. It is iconic. It is the definitive image of that era, humans turning the apocalypse into a stage. But then you have the other side of the coin, the crust walkers, the people who saw a thin black crust over a hollow lava tube and thought, that looks like a sidewalk. Rescue teams have pulled people out of situations that defy logic. People stripping off their clothes for social media while standing inside the hazard zone. The rescue services eventually had to adopt a tough love policy. When someone steps onto the closed lava and falls through into a 200-degree cavity, well, that is where the rescue calculation ends. Because the volcano might be asleep, but the trap is still set. This terrain charges a physical toll, and it collects it slowly. As you push deeper into the valleys, into the newer fields, the air itself changes weight. Even years later, the deep basins act as a collection bowl. Carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide are heavier than air. On calm winter days, they pool in the hollows. When the air in a basin looks wrong, that faint blue haze, treat it like a boundary line. You will not smell the danger until your lungs start burning. The living museum is not inert, it is just holding its breath. So here is the reality check. The landscape is indifferent. The wind direction matters more than your itinerary. And the black crust is not a sidewalk. When you look out over those three valleys, you are seeing a timeline. You are seeing the primitive magma of 2021, the evolved magma of 2023, and the scars of the fires that bound them together. You are seeing the earth trying to heal itself. The moss, the Raccomitrium, is the clock. It will take decades to cover that black scar at Litli-Hrútur. The system is loading. Nobody knows if this chapter lasts a year or a century. But until then, we have the sound. Snap, click, tink. If you give the basalt a moment, it answers. You will hear that chandelier breaking deep beneath your feet. The sound of the earth cooling down, one crystal at a time.
Gunnar likes the image of shattered chandeliers, but out here, it's just a thermal battery losing its temper while you stand there fishing for a metaphor. If you mistake vitreous basalt for a sidewalk, you are the exact reason rescue services eventually stop calculating your survival. The living museum isn't a gallery, it's just holding its breath. Subscribe, like, and share this if you want the anatomy of the peninsula. Join the rank on YouTube and the podcast platforms to separate yourself from the tourists swallowing Instagram garbage. It is a survival filter for those who prefer the bone to the postcard. The full autopsy is archived at icelandexplained.com, the diagnostic hub for unspoken articles, raw source data, and the gear we actually trust when the terrain charges a physical toll. The link in the description is the sanity tax, the fuel that keeps this machine independent of corporate fluff and state-sanctioned brochures. This sanity tax includes the Buy Me a Coffee link for direct support, because excellence is a physical cost, not a lifestyle choice. We provide the refusal to lie. You provide the fuel. It is a transaction, not a favor. The ledger of consequence doesn't close just because you've left the trailhead. That debt to reality follows you as the cooling basins of the aftermath bleed into the acidic rot of Seltún, a valley currently busy dissolving its own foundation through chemical weathering. It is the next logical layer of decay on this restless strip of rock. Just beyond that ridge, Kleifarvatn waits, a lake that drains through tectonic fissures, proving even the water here has no loyalty to the map. The earth is not a floor, it is a leak. This is Iceland Explained. We deliver the anatomy. We serve the context. We provide the bone. A story, not a guide.